One line that I go back to again and again is our purpose is our permission. Just by the fact that we feel like we need to do that, that is our permission, and we don't need to get that from someone else. And our story, who we are, our experience, where we come from, that's our authority. That's why we get a space at the table.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. Real quick before we jump in, I am running a live open coaching call tomorrow. Tomorrow, if you're listening to this as it first comes out. To sign up for that, head over to rebeltherapist.me/question and grab your spot. So that is happening on August 16th, 2023 at 11 a.m. Pacific, just for an hour. And you can come and ask me anything. And I'll be talking about everything from niching to creating your first program to selling your first program. It is open to all. Please come join me and ask me your question. So that's rebeltherapist.me/question. And if you're catching this too late, I'll see if that link works for my next open coaching call. Who knows? The other thing I want to tell you really quick is that registration for Create Your Program, which is my 10-week awesome program to help you create your signature program, that is opening up in about a week. And then once registration closes for this round, it's not going to open up again probably for the rest of the year. So if you're interested in doing Create Your Program and working with me closely in getting a ton of support on creating your signature program and moving beyond private practice, this is the program for you. Go to rebeltherapist.me/create and get on the wait list now. Register when it opens up. All right, let's get into the episode. So can you really make great money running a program that you love and that's based on what you do best? Rebecca Lee does, and she's got a year-long wait list for it. As a social worker and supervisor for social workers, she felt a pull to create something totally different, something that wouldn't fit into the box of supervision or therapy or even coaching as we know it. At first, she struggled with giving herself permission to create it. In this episode, you're going to hear how she created something that only Rebecca could create and why her family farm is part of it. If you've wondered if your idea is too out there, this is going to give you a big dose of permission to create your program. Rebecca Lee is a clinical supervisor and eco therapist who works with therapists, wellness professionals, and healers to tap into their own rhythm, health, and vision so that they can create impactful and joyful professional lives for themselves. Her work is centered around how we can reconnect with our authentic landscape through social justice, anti-oppression, seasonal landscape relationship, yoga, and Ayerveda practices. Welcome, Rebecca. I'm so excited that you're here.
Me too. Thanks, Annie.
So you have a program up and running and you're really enjoying it. So let's start with that. Can you tell us about that offer, who it's for, and what it is?
Yes. So I think to start, like if there's a visual, I have two different programs. So it's kind of thinking about a Venn diagram crossing over, but both are very much rooted in working specifically with compassionate professionals, primarily social workers, therapists, and counselors, to do the best work of their life by leveraging their authenticity, their unique vision, and centering around this idea of prioritizing their health, their natural rhythms, and their connection to their seasonal landscape. So that's the root for both of those programs. And yes, who I work with, I tend to go back to saying I work specifically with givers, those that are like, yep, that would be me. I'm the one who pours from the empty cup sometimes. But the programs were very much formed from my work with social workers specifically as a clinical supervisor. And so that's the lens that I bring to a lot of that work. But it's really like if I go back to the basics of the programs, it's supporting a vision of creating healthy professionals in healthy practices versus sacrificing one for the other.
Okay. And when you say following, I think you said following their natural rhythms, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What's a rhythm that you find popping up for people that is not their natural rhythm? Like what's something that you see a lot of times with people you work with?
I think because, again, working specifically with social workers, therapists, we have the edge to be able to see the strengths in situations because that's what we do with clients. We're always kind of pulling those strengths out. But social workers specifically, we're always looking at things very systemically. And so everything can start slanting toward this problem focus, this scarcity mindset, and it's hard to see the light through the tunnel. And so one of the rhythms that we go back to a lot is just this idea of finding natural ease in our life by seeing the abundance versus living in that space of scarcity, because we can really become pretty problem focused. So ease is one piece that we don't see it as a rhythm typically. And I like to speak about ease as a rhythm because I think it makes it more simple to come back to. Oh, it's just instead of seeing through the window, I'm looking at all of the stuff that's sitting on the window. I'm not seeing the mountains. I'm not seeing the clouds and the birds and everything through the window, that abundance. I'm just seeing the problems with the stains on the window and what I need to clean and what I need to fix to make the view of the abundance more clear.
Do you have to work with some, especially social workers, around guilt in order to allow themselves to even find and appreciate ease?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of overlay of guilt that sinks in. I love the new term out there of imposter syndrome when we look at it and we're like, wait a second, if everyone has it, is it a syndrome or is this a systemic problem that we're dealing with? You got that. You've got shame. I mean, all those things are just kind of worked in. And so a lot of this piece around coming back to authenticity is, can we notice what is authentically ours and can we notice what is conditioned in? And if we understand that our bodies are made to support us and to nurture us and to care for us. So anything that feels like it's attacking, that's not actually ours. So that guilt that comes in, the shame that comes in, being able to parse it out and distinguish between what is authentically Rebecca versus what has just been kind of drilled in over time that I have to start releasing back.
We say that part again. If it is the sign that it's not ours, if it's attacking us, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's attacking us is not actually ours.
Right. We look at we just look at our body system and we notice our innate capacity to heal. I mean, it's kind of amazing and profound. If we look at the fact that we can have a cut on our arm one day and a few days later, we have new skin that's forming. Our bodies want to serve as something that is nurturing and supportive. So if it feels like something is just unsettling and it doesn't feel right and it feels out of alignment, it's instead of thinking about that as I must be the problem. Wait, something else is in. I'm digesting something that doesn't fit, that's actually toxic to what my body genuinely needs and what feels more authentic to me.
So you've got these two programs. One is the one that we worked more on together, Becoming Home, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How does it work?
So both of them are year-long programs. Becoming Home is one of those that is very rooted in authenticity and integrating into our landscape and finding rhythm in our life. It's a year-long program. And what we do is every season we go over a set of rhythms that as healers and helpers we tend to forget about in our own life. We come back to those. So one quarter we start having conversations around different rhythms, like ease, like our digestion, like how do we wake up in the morning. And then into the next season we deepen our level of integrating those rhythms into our life. And in the third season we deepen again. So I talk about the first season as that's us just tapping into that wisdom that's always been there, but just starting to listen and paying attention to it. The second season is about then connecting outwards to community and just figuring out who do we need and what do we need around us to support this new conversation. The third season is all around integrity and being able to have voice to what we need and what's important to us and what's authentic to us. And the fourth season is all around, all right, what showed up? What is now rhythmic in our life that we want to be able to sustain moving forward? So the Becoming Home is really about that idea of not only coming home to our own self, our own bodies, our own vision for our life, but becoming that home. That just by being us, we are home versus that being someplace else and something that we have to move towards.
And so people can join once a quarter. Is that right? And then are they all together in one group no matter when they joined?
Yes. So a big piece of the program is rooting down into this community dynamic. There's the one-on-one aspect, but I really, really try to focus on the necessity of community. And so initially when I was starting to look at it, I was like, okay, maybe I just do cohort based, where it's like, you're with one group, it's the same group all year long. And then I start having conversations with different folks that do community in a very real and authentic way. And they're like, well, community ebbs and flows. It changes. People come in, people leave. And so to have that dynamic movement in the community so people can feel like it's still safe, even if there's movement and flex within that community. So we have people come in once a quarter. They come into the larger group. They're able to have one-on-one connected time with me and asynchronous support from me. And I encourage people to I had one gal in the group be the one to distinguish the name of this, but to find a walking companion. So basically an accountability partner that they can walk through this experience with. And I am pleasantly shocked by how amazing that is for people to then show up in the group and they're like, oh, and I know you. So I've got this backup person that like we already have this inner connection that's happening. So then the ease to show up more vulnerably in the group, to be more authentic in that space is like, well, it's because I know you. We have a connection. Oh, and I know you and we have a connection.
Do people spontaneously choose and reach out to people to be their walking companion, or do you assign people? How does that part work?
Yeah, so what I try to facilitate when needed, if people are feeling stuck, because I think some of us kind of wonder, like, well, are they going to like me? It's almost like finding a friend. I talk about finding friends as adults seems to be harder than dating half the time, because there's all of the thoughts that come up of like, is this going to work? Am I too much? And so I give them a lot of space to explore that and some different ways that they can connect with people, how they can start that conversation, because sometimes it's hard to know where to actually begin. And a lot of that is looking at, in this relationship, we can actually establish exactly what we want to get out of this relationship. So I can say, this is where I'm at. This is where I know that I'm going to struggle in a group because I get nervous about being in a group. And this is what would be supportive of me. And then that other person can say, like, I can totally show up for that. And then this is what I could really use in this dynamic. And so they can support each other and hold each other accountable to where each of them are moving without necessarily being the advice givers. They're like, I'm here to hold this space for you. And so whatever you want to move towards, that's now important to me. And I'm going to be asking those questions of curiosity of, are we moving towards that, or are we moving away from that because there's some kind of discomfort that's showing up, that's the shame or the guilt that kind of pulls us back from that movement forward. So the walking companions have been great. It's one of those where all of this is happening on the side that I'm not really actively a part of, which pushes my own control issues initially, but it's turned into this piece that I'm like, okay, we got to do this like right from the beginning because this is fantastic.
Yes. That's so interesting. As a program creator and facilitator, like I feel like there's a tendency to feel like the more we do, the better the program will be. And sometimes that's true. Like I'm not into like, just I feel like sometimes it can go too far to the other side where people are like, if you want to get something out of it, you'll get something out of it, even if I don't do anything for you. I don't agree with that.
Right.
But
it's all on you.
Right. But yet I feel like there is this sweet spot of like not just trying to do more, but to allow the magic of the program to happen, which sometimes involves us more or less.
And I've noticed in this, because my tendency is always going to be to overdo it versus underdo it. Like I'm always trying to pull back, Rebecca. Whoa, too much. Because as a part of both of these programs, they have access to the in-person one-day retreats that we have twice a year. And those retreats are one of those spaces that every single time I do a retreat, it's beautiful and it's amazing. And I'm always shocked at how much people get out of that space. But every single time I'm like, you can do a little bit less next time. You can do a little bit less next time because people just want to be in spaces where it's safe. They can be vulnerable. They can be honest. They can do their own digging. Half of that shows up just in the individual conversations that they're having with other people, where you're just offering the right question that allows them to go there. And that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. I could have all this curriculum and that would be great. And those people that are like me are like, ooh, more curriculum. But really what I feel like we tend to need less of is just more information. We need the time to be able to integrate because it's just more information.
Okay, so for your one-day retreats, do people from both programs all go to the same retreats or do you have separate retreats?
Yes, so they both go to the same retreats. Those retreats end up, I would say, yes, they're all still rooted around authenticity, landscape integration, seasonality, but kind of an overarching focus there is burnout. Like, how are we actually dealing with this piece of burnout? And it's an area, it's interesting when I look at, why I've created these programs, I have both sides. I have the frustrated scarcity mindset that shows up of all the reasons I've created these, which is people who are therapists, social workers, counselors, people in this work, they are leaving the field because they're burned out and they're not doing the work that you can tell they are innately, like they are meant to do that work, but they can't because the system isn't set up to actually care for them. And then I look at the other side, this abundant side of, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. We can actually come back home to ourselves and our sense of like, what do we really need? And when we have a group, a community dynamic of other people that are backing us up and setting the boundaries and saying, no, I'm not going to do it that way because it doesn't work for me. And it's not in alignment with how I'm going to do my best work. If I'm burning the candle at both ends, I'm not sleeping. I guarantee you I'm not going to be as productive for you if I'm in an organization. If I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating well, I'm not going to be as present with my clients in these spaces. And so it becomes that place of there's no other option but to find that deeper authenticity within us and live that, especially if we're looking at this piece of will never exist again in this way. Like there's never been an Annie like you that has ever existed before. It's you and never again. And so to value what we bring to the table, what's unique to us, what's authentic to us, what's natural to us, like that has to be the top priority. But people need the space to have the permission to do that. And one line that I go back to again and again is our purpose is our permission. Just by the fact that we feel like we need to do that, that is our permission, and we don't need to get that from someone else. And our story, who we are, our experience, where we come from, that's our authority. That's why we get a space at the table, because it's our story. It's nobody else's, and no one else can bring what we're bringing. So I went in like 5 different directions to one of your questions.
So at the retreats, is anybody there who's not part of one of the other programs? Like, is it something that people sometimes sign up for on its own, or is it just a bonus?
Yeah, so I think the last one that we had, I probably had about 60% of the people were there from the programs, and the other 40% were people who found out about the retreat in different ways, or I have for those that are in the program, I set it up to where for one event, they can just bring someone with them. So we'll get extra people coming in, and usually those people that are showing up they're at that place of I'm burned out, I'm exhausted, I need anything that can refill my cup. That's what I'm looking for.
So how many people were at the last one?
The last one, we ended up splitting it into 2 weekends, and we had 34 people total. So we had about 15, 16 people per day. And, I look at it because I really like 10. 10 is a beautiful number to me. And so we might end up having more of a first come, first serve situation, or we might just offer more retreats because it is one of those that people kind of want to keep coming back to.
Where do you have the retreats?
We have the retreats at our family farm here. So my practice is called Just Living Therapy, and we have Just Living Farm. And so that's where we do the retreats. So the weather sometimes, gives us a run for our money because we're actively working on building a structure that, we can be inside if we need to. But the goal is to just get people back in nature, like sit in the grass, touch the ground, and experience the birds and the breeze and the blue skies. And because so many of us are in front of a computer, we're in our cars, or we're in an office with air conditioning, and being able to have something that's a little bit more rooted in the landscape allows for a different conversation to happen than it can happen in a conference room.
Attention. If you're a therapist or healer who wants a lucrative business model where you get to do what you love, but you don't have to be running session after session after session and still barely making enough money, I have an offer for you. I want to invite you to check out my 10-week program called Create Your Program. You'll learn how to design and launch your own pilot program. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. I will teach you how. Head over to rebeltherapist.me/create to learn more and register. Let's get back to the episode. Okay, so how do you do things like bathrooms, food, the logistical stuff?
Bathrooms, we have a bathroom there. We had a couple times that we got like a porta potty, a nicer porta potty that was there. But my parents live on the farm right now, and so we have that home, and they're very much like anyone who shows up to the farm, we are so privileged to have the space that we have. And so this is not inherently our space. This is meant to be the space for community. And we just happen to be taking care of it right now. And so they have their home and they are like, come in, you can use the bathroom. Here's coffee, here's tea, here's whatever snacks that they made. So yeah, we have the facilities there that people use. And then for food, so far I get the assistance of family and friends, and we make all of the food for the event. And cooking and working with food is like my own personal passion, and so it's one of those. It's really nice to be able to sink into these other areas and know that my work is actually all of it. Like I get to cook, I get to do my art, I get to do the farm, I get to be with people, and I'm doing it all in one space together.
So it's kind of delightful.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, cool. And so people during the retreats, they come for how many hours?
The retreats, let's see, they go from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon.
Nice. Okay. I'm asking all these nerdy questions because these are the things like having run actual in-person events. As you know, Rebecca, like there are so many details that we don't have to worry about when we're running online programs. There's so many physical details. And so it's helpful to hear that stuff.
Yeah, there's all of I got to print out letting people know about the fact that you're on a working farm. It's an active working farm, and where you can walk and where you can go, and figuring out, it's a farm. So it's those details of how are people going to move through the space, and are there obstacles and things that are going to become problematic? And we want everyone to have access. So we want to have things available. So if we want to go out to the field and people aren't able to walk out to the field, we all go into, I can't remember what it's called, but we basically drive out to the field so everyone can participate in everything, regardless of their ability to maneuver some of these spaces. But it's all those little details of where are people sitting, what's going on with the sunshine and the light, and do we have hand sanitizer and sunscreen? Just some really random stuff that I didn't think that I'd be thinking about. But once you do one, you write everything down, you process everything. So then when you have to do it again, you're like, oh, there's my checklist. I'm ready to go. Yes,
I love hearing that. That's totally what I would do. Yeah, it would be in a Notion dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a Google Sheet.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the cost of becoming home?
Becoming home for the year is $5,500.
I know it might change by the time people hear this, but like at the moment,
At the moment, the Becoming Home year-long program is $5,500 for the year. And so that right now includes the 2 calls a week. And so we do basically 10 weeks, and then we take a break, and then we do 10 weeks, and we take a break.
2 calls a week?
2 calls a week. So there's one rhythm call where we're just talking about the rhythm that we're working through. We have some exercises. The second call is like, hey, if you didn't make it to the last one, or if you're really wanting to dig in, we do a deep dive call where we're really like, this is where we're integrating. This is where we're going into the nuance of like, I've got all of this stuff showing up and I'm trying to integrate these things that in my home life and they're not balancing with my kids. And we're just processing through like, okay, this is probably showing up for many other people in the group. So let's dig into those details and those nuances. So there's those 2 calls every week. And I just let people know, like, try to make it to one, do the best you can to make it to one, but they're all recorded so people can access them later if they want to. They get the one-on-one, like kind of laser coaching time with me once a month. The asynchronous support, which I am a huge fan of since working with you. I'm like, okay, that is a thing. We need to do that. And I feel like that asynchronous support, like, it allows people to ask questions in the moment as they're dealing with things versus they have to wait till the group, or they have to wait till they're meeting with me. And then it includes the retreats. So I want people who are doing this to just have easy access to these in-person spaces versus you're in the program, but wait, if you want the in-person, okay, here's an extra thing. No. I just want all of it to be rolled in together so people can get access to all of the different components, because some things are going to resonate more and support with certain people, and others are going to resonate more and support with other people. And so I don't know, it's one of those that I knew that I would love it. I knew that I would have fun with it, but I'm just like, why didn't I do this years ago?
Oh, that's so great.
Fun.
That's so great. And then, okay, so that's Becoming Home. What's the other program called?
The other program is called Supervision Circle. So I still do clinical supervision. And so this was a way for me to do clinical supervision more in a program space and decrease the amount of people. So Supervision Circle is a little bit more of, I see it as like the VIP offshoot of Becoming Home for social workers, therapists, and counselors that are either looking to get supervision, they need clinical supervision hours, or they're licensed and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just need more support. So that program includes the Becoming Home course. So that's automatically rolled in. They have access to all of that wellness, rhythm, balance side of things, which I feel like as I've been doing supervision, that's been the biggest gap that has shown up in supervision is most of my conversations keep coming back to, well, how are you balancing out? Like, where is the rhythm? Like, what are your rituals to feel grounded? Like, what do you need to feel like you can be a healthy, authentic clinician? And I'm like, okay, you just need to get into this program. You just need to do this piece. So it includes that. It includes the individual supervision or consultation, depending on if you're licensed or not, access to groups, and then it has this whole business piece of it, that healthy business piece that I was talking about, of like, how do we develop business structures and practices that are then in alignment with what is most helpful for us and our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and not just taking the system that we came from and shoving it into our private practice, because we know we've all kind of been there. We know how well that works, and it doesn't work particularly well.
What are some of those things you see people trying to like shove into their business or shove their business into?
I think I get a lot of, well, I need to be available during the hours that my clients are available. So I need to work after hours. I need to work weekends. In order to make money, I have to see this profound amount of people. So I have to push those edges. So there's not that awareness around, we figure out what we love to do, and then we figure out how to make money doing it, versus here's the box, and the box is you see 30 to 35 clients a week. They're all one-on-one. You don't take breaks, and you work till 7:00 because that's when people are available. And I'm like, no. Do you want to do that? No. Well, then don't do that. But it's that same thing, is there's that piece that we've kind of been conditioned to believe that we have to get permission from someone else, from somewhere else, to do what we really want to do, when your purpose and what you want to do, that is your permission. That's where you're getting your permission, because no one else can do what you're doing. Nobody. Like, you're the only one that's going to bring that.
I feel like even sometimes I've done this myself. I'll crowdsource permission, but I'll do it even worse than that. I'll do it not like, let me find someone to give me permission. I'll scan. I'm doing this less now, Rebecca, like especially with like more trauma healing, I'm doing this way less. But I would scan to see, does anybody disapprove of this? Is there anybody I haven't gotten permission from yet? And let me focus on that. That's a terrible habit. You're never going to have everybody agree with you about how you set up your business or like how you set up your life.
Yeah. And like that's that when we go back to that rhythm around ease, it's that piece of that's just us looking for the scarcity. It's us looking for the problem because we've been taught to do that our value is based on what other people say it is. And so we're like, am I still good? Am I good? I need to know that I'm good in all these different areas because then I'm like, okay, yes, I'm good. Versus, am I in alignment with what I want to do? Because that's the only thing I can do is what is natural to me, where my natural strengths are, where my natural skill sets. As you said, where your superpowers are. What are those? Like, those are the things that give us the permission to do that. Because I'm the only one that can do it in that way. You're the only one that can do it in the way that you do it. Because I would notice for me, I still have it show up time and time again where I'm looking for permission and I'm looking for like, who's going to give it to me? Like, you seem nice. You're going to tell me exactly what I want to hear. And then before I hear that, I'm like stuck at a standstill. And then you realize that's what you're doing. You're like, oh, I don't need that from you.
Yeah. Makes me think of Octavia Butler talked about a positive obsession and like that it's important to follow our positive obsession and that positive obsession can be like a life force and can be perhaps the permission because nobody else is probably quite as obsessed with our thing as we are. In a good way. I'm not talking about the diagnosis kind of obsession.
Right. No, the healthy obsession. Healthy, let's say healthy to you versus healthy to anybody else. But that's been, a piece of this, especially with the supervision circle, where it's really looking at healthy professionals, healthy practices, is we really root down into what is most authentic to you. What do you love doing, and how can you integrate that into your work life? Versus all those things that we really, really love. Well, some of them have to be over here because I can't ever integrate them in. Like if you're a therapist that loves being outside and your practice is indoors, does it have to be that way? If you're someone who loves being artistic and there's not an ounce of art in your practice, is there a problem with that? If you love being around animals, if you love music, that should be integrated in because that's where you're going to nail it. You're going to hit it out of the park because you're showing up as your most authentic self. And so there's no qualms. It's easy to see the person in front of you. It's easy to hold space for them because you're like, I'm good. My cup is full. I'm constantly nourishing myself on a regular basis, not just in my home life, but in my entire life, I'm nourishing myself.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I was just doing asynchronous coaching with somebody from RTMI before we came on this call, and I was noticing some perfectionism in their stuff, in their business plan. So I started singing to them in my video to them. I was like, I'm noticing some perfectionism, and that makes me want to sing to you. And like that kind of just little stuff, I think it does leave me. I mean, I'm doing it to be useful, and I think it does leave me so much better at the end of the day. Yeah,
it's you. I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and it was about like I think it was visually showing up on camera, and like, do you? If you want to wear the makeup because it feels great to you, do it. If you don't. But that just kind of embodiment where if I want to sing a message to you, I'm going to sing a message to you because that's what's showing up naturally right now in this moment.
So Rebecca, how do people find you? How are you filling these programs?
I would still say it's pretty much word of mouth because all I was doing was really clinical supervision and some consultation. And so I had those supervisees that, I talk about, okay, well, I'm pivoting and I'm assuming, most people are going to drop off. And you start having this conversation about the space and community and your wellness. They're like, oh, that's an easy, of course I'm going to do that. And so most of it's been all word of mouth.
What do you think you did to make that word of mouth possible? Like, what do you think the kind of like relationship nurturing that you had maybe done naturally, like it might not have even been strategic, purposefully, but yeah, what do you think if you look back on your former self and you see what you were doing that led to that?
I think some things that I've been doing all along without really realizing it until you asked me this question is like I'm always trying to find ways to get people to bring other people in. So like I'll offer all the time, like here I'm doing clinical supervision here, but I am at the farm every single Wednesday in the afternoon hanging out. If you ever want to come, or if you got someone else that you work with that you just need a break, you just want to hang out at the farm, you can totally do that. If you want to have a great conversation, I'm going to be there anyway, because this is what I do every Wednesday. And we just have kind of random people show up. And the conversation is always super different and unique from one Wednesday to the next. But I think it makes a difference when it's instead of the only way that you can access me is if you go through this system or you pay me for all of my time. I can just say like, you don't have to pay me for my time. I'm just going to hang out. And this is what we do. We just hang out and we have conversation. And so I've had supervisees show up. I've had people bring their partners with them. I've had them bring kids out. And that same thing with the program and being able to say, you're in the program, bring someone with you to an event. It's cool. Like we're all hanging out together, more the merrier. And I think it just allows that space to know that regardless if you're in my program or not, the access doesn't disappear because we go back to like it's all rooted in Just Living Farm. And Just Living Farm is an open space. Like you can just come if you want to. You don't have to do anything to belong in this space. Just by simply being there, you belong. And so I think that's been this interesting marketing / not really super intentional marketing that's happened along the way.
Wow. Okay. And then what do you do in the digital realm of marketing? Emails, social media, like online events, any of those things?
I'm on Instagram. I post some there. I don't know that brings much in by way of like active marketing that turns into something. I would say I somewhat have a mailing list, but I don't have like a regular newsletter that goes out right now. It's one of those that's been in my back brain for 2 years and I still don't have that off the ground yet. But I have a list of people. So when I'm doing something, I just send an email blast to all the people that have slowly kind of accumulated in that list.
Wait a minute. When you say that, does that mean that's not in your email marketing system? That's a separate email?
Right, that's a separate. So I don't have really an active email marketing system going. And so I have a set list of this group of people, a set list of this group of people, depending on if they're supervisees, if they're licensed individuals. And so I'll just send an email blast. Hey, I have this event going on. We're doing this retreat again if you're interested.
How many people are on those lists, roughly?
Oh, not very many people. We're talking maybe 100 people. It's not very many people.
I can't believe you're not doing that in your marketing, like in your like ConvertKit or MailChimp or whatever you use. Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah, it's
bigger than some people's just email lists. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's a little bit of like it's my area of hot mess where
Okay, but it's working. I mean, that's why I'm laughing. I'm like, damn, okay.
it's working, but it's definitely one of those that I figured out how to do it so it doesn't eat up an exorbitant amount of time, but it eats up just enough that it's a space that is not easeful, that needs some work, to say the least.
We could talk when we stop recording, like we could talk about like an idea I would have for you,
Like,
which would basically be like someone to hire to just like move it over into there for you. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. So you are using email. You're just like, you just happen to be using more of like an old school platform for it. And then you're actually meeting with people. Like you have this just sort of like open door, like literally organic way of of meeting with people.
Well, and I think when I get to, like right now, the programs are full through summer of next year. So like I'm not actively marketing the programs.
Wait, they're full through summer of 2024?
Yes.
Holy shit.
The supervision one is full. The becoming home one has much more flex around it. But I'm like, Rebecca, let's just focus on what you've got going right here. So I'm not actively marketing. When I am marketing, I really do. Like I go back to people that I know that I haven't connected with in a long time. Who I got into the program, it's been conversations. And it's been conversations around, I'm doing this really exciting thing that I want to tell you about. And I'm just curious about people being a referral source, if they know someone who would be a great fit, but they're like, well, I can do it, right? Can I sign up for it? Because then I would be an even better person to talk about it. And I'm like, well, yes, of course you can sign up for it. And so, but it's that I don't know. I don't know if it's social workers specifically, but there is a process of having trust in signing up for something. When they know me already, there's already that kind of level of trust that I'm not going to throw something at them if I don't feel like it's going to be a good fit or supportive. And they know that if you don't sign up, like that doesn't change the dynamic between us at all. There's no issues with not signing up. But what I've noticed is for those that I haven't worked with before, like it takes that conversation. I sit down and I have that discovery call, or we do a strategy session, and we just really dig into what are your needs right now. I want to make sure that I'm not trying to shove something at you that is not going to be a good fit, or maybe the timing is not quite right. I want to really make sure that when you step into this, like it is exactly what you're looking for. And
I noticed on your sales pages, that's the call to action, is just sign up for a free session with you. And then I bet you don't think about it this way at all, but I'm just going to ask the business nerdy way anyway. What is the conversion rate? Knowing that you're not actually trying to get people to convert, but still I'm just curious, like what is the conversion rate, do you think, of those when someone signs up for a call and then signs up for your program?
Calls, I'd have to go back and get the specific numbers, but it's more or less, it's got to be like 80 to 85% of those that I talk to that get in. And surprisingly, those that are not getting in, usually we're looking at like something a little bit different. Or usually I'm saying, I just don't think the timing is quite right for you. If you have all of these other things going on, this will burn you out. This burnout program will burn you out. Not good timing. And so for some of those, instead of having those one-on-ones in the program itself, sometimes we do one-on-ones for a couple months, and then they get into it when they feel like, they've got a better grasp of like, yes, this is how I can structure this in and actually make this work. So most of the time when they're not, those that don't sign up, they're usually kind of waiting. They're like, I got to figure out how to make this all fit and make it work. But I think I had talked with you early on when I'm, kind of plugging away and putting some of this stuff together. And I'm like, people keep saying yes. I don't know what's happening. This must be a fluke. And then I realized, oh, all social workers are burned out. Of course, they're looking for something that is supportive. And I think people are really wanting to connect around something where it is rooted in something that's deeper and something that's authentic versus here's your 5-step program to happiness. Or if you just do these 4 things, everything will be great. I'm like, no, this is going to be real work. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. You're going to deal with all of your stuff as we move through this. But I guarantee you, if you're just showing up, there is going to be a shift and you're going to notice this subtle movement of how you feel in your body, what kind of thoughts and ideas are now showing up in your mind that were not there before or that were excessively there before. And just this spirit, like a different rootedness, but then a lightness that's there. And what I love hearing, through the program is, because I'm always looking at like what tangible is showing up for people. And they're like, oh, it's in this deep subtlety. Like I'm just a more like well-rounded person. I'm more me. I'm like, okay, this has got to be doing something right. If you say I'm more me than I felt like I was a month ago, like, okay, we're moving in the right direction.
Oh, I love that. Well, that feels like a perfect place to end. I love that outcome. I'm more me. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Annie.
Learn more about Rebecca Lee at justlivingtherapy.org. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely how we reach more people. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.